film sucks. Indie film sucks. It's the Indie Film Sucks podcast. Yeah.
Coming at you from the mean streets of St. Louis, from a basement on South Broadway, the Indie Film Sucks podcast. Because Indie Film Sucks,
Episode 43 of Suck.
yes.
Huh? What are you going to do?
And what are you going to do? Tonight we have a special guest,
We do have a special guest.
Jessica Ambuehl.
You even used my middle name.
Whoa.
know.
Wow, that's
You did some
official.
research.
I did.
Wow.
Welcome to the show.
Is she in trouble? Are you?
Right. Am I grounded? Did I
Maybe.
do something
Jeez.
wrong?
Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you.
Well, I have to give you the famous, statement here. See what you got. What's your suck, Jessica?
My suck is how much work it takes to hear a yes.
Okay. Go expand on that, please.
Okay. So I think it goes on both sides of the camera. You know, you can make a lot of films, but until a distributor says yes or someone says it is worthy of sharing, sometimes it takes a lot of no's to get to that yes. As an actor, we audition so many times, hundreds of times a year, and hear hundreds of no's before we can get to many yeses. Or it might be, maybe not all those hundreds to hear one yes, but you go through all of that work to hear a few yeses because we love what we do. So it's a lot of work.
So let me ask you
Sucks.
this on the yes part of that thing. Is it good enough just to get the yes for the audition to get the role? Or do you have to get all the yeses? Does everybody have to get all the yeses all the way through in order for it to be a success?
I think the first win is got chosen to audition. Fantastic. I get a chance. The next big yes is if there's a callback. Okay, well, they saw something good that they want me to come back and do something again. I'm directable, or they saw something they liked. Fantastic. And then the ultimate yes is you were the one. You're the chosen one. And there's so many factors that go into that. And because I work on both sides of the camera, I'm very, very aware of that. So I've had to learn to not get my hopes up. I have a friend who lived in LA for years, and his roommate was an actor, and he was not. He worked in other roles behind the camera, and he would go on hundreds of auditions, and he had to learn. He said, I will walk out of we don't walk out of rooms very often anymore. It's all self-tape and Zoom. But he would walk out of a room, throw away the script, and move on to the next one. And I try to get to that point. But there's always those special opportunities or roles. You're like, oh, this one though, I really, really want this one. And I believe everything happens for a reason. But when you get it, it feels good. It feels really good.
Let me ask you this question, because I have heard this before from actors, that they kill for the audition. I mean, they kill it, and they get the part, and they're excited. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly, like, oh, hell, I got the part. Now I got to do this thing. Have you ever felt that?
That's a good question. I actually have a short film I'm in Ohio this weekend. And it's not so much like, oh, no, but it's more like, this is a big deal to me. And it's not because of the size of a project. It's because of the role. Because I'm not typically cast for this. And I went for it. And I worked for it. And then I was chosen. And I was like, I just have, in my own head, you always want to meet the director's vision. You always want to do well and honor everyone who's on set. But I put more responsibility, I think, and pressure on myself because it's not a role people would typically cast me for. So I want to prove to myself and to everyone on set and to the world that I can do this, that I'm more than just a soccer mom.
Okay, can't wait to see this one.
Yeah, me too. No, I was really intrigued by the script, and this is why I'm driving to Ohio and in the short film.
What's the part? Because I've seen you in a fair number of things.
There's been some nice deviation over the years, which I'm really grateful for. I know what my natural niche is, and that's okay. Everyone has a natural. You look like this, great. Well, I can look like other things too. You just gotta redo or give me a chance. That's what I always want is just give me a chance. Just let me try, because you don't know until you let me try. So this role is actually a drug addict. But there's a little bit of a twist. I can't tell you too much, but I love the way that they handled addiction. It's called Obsession. It is a short, and I love the mystery till the end, and it leaves you guessing until the end, and there's a lot of emotion, and yeah. And I've done a lot of research on this one, so it's been interesting.
Have you ever got an audition and say you get the part, and you see the finished product and you go, cringe. I go, damn, maybe, because I've done that. And on the flip side of that, have you ever went to an audition and didn't get it and maybe get pissed or whatever, and then you see the product and you go, man, I'm really glad I didn't get that part?
I don't know about the second one. I would have to look like over the years. I keep track of all of my work and all the times I submit. I've been doing that for years. And so those type of questions, I have to kind of look back and go, I think I remember that. And nowadays, my process is different. You know, early on in my career, I wasn't as picky. And now that I've been doing it for quite a while,
Absolutely.
I will ask filmmakers, can I see some of, show me
You have to
the
protect yourself.
director's work. You show me the DP's work. Show me. And sometimes you don't get a ton, and sometimes you do. So my standard's really, really high, and I will lower it some if I think that if it's still good, but not like it's gonna win Tribeca. You know, like it's
Right.
so gorgeous, because I know what people's levels are. It's good, but it's not the dream. But it's still good. But it's not like I don't want to. There've been even recent ones where I was like, I don't know if it's not worth it.
Well, that's what I tell filmmakers, what I tell potential crew members, what I tell young actors starting out. When you first start out, do everything you possibly can. And do it for free, do it pro bono. Don't expect to make a ton of money doing this stuff when you first start out. Just do it to learn, if you even like this type of work. And if you like stage, or you like film, because they are very different disciplines. And most people, when they start out doing stage, they're doing little black box theater, community theater, high school theater. You're not getting paid to do that. You're doing it, and either you really like it and you have to keep doing it, or you're like, this is not for me. So that's what I tell people. When you first start out, don't say no to anything. Say yes to pretty much everything. And then once you have that experience and you have some projects under your belt, then you can be a little bit more like, well, I don't think this is up to my level. Or I don't think this is a project I need to be involved with. You know, at some point you kind of stop doing the student films, you stop doing the black box theater, and you're doing it more because you have a passion for it, but also because there's some pedigree behind it, and maybe God willing, you can make a little money.
Yeah, and when you first start out, you also don't have a resume.
No.
And it's kind of that catch-22 is the chicken or the egg, which comes first. So it's hard to get representation when you don't have a resume. But how do you get it if you don't have representation to get you some extra roles? And so a lot of it's a grind of trying to find your own work. And like you said, you know, volunteering for some things. Nothing wrong with going for the paid ones either.
No.
But if, like, when I cast, I know that if I see something on someone's resume, I know that they have a little experience. So they've been on some sets. Now it may only be student sets. It all varies. But you have a little bit more of an understanding because you at least tried, as opposed to someone else. So.
Or everybody has to start somewhere.
Right, and that's hard in this industry because
Right.
you either get the catch or you know someone, or you just
Grind it out.
and it's hard. It's about almost once a year. I'm like, I'm a fighter, so I will never quit. I love what I do, but there's a point every year where I'm like,
We told
this
you it
is
sucks,
so
Jessica.
much work. I know. It's a beautiful suck, though. Can I say that?
Yes.
Those two words go together.
Absolutely.
Because you appreciate things that you work hard for.
Exactly. Because
Yeah.
you do a lot of volunteer work. I mean, as far as humanitarian work. So I often liken indie film sucks and independent film to the Peace Corps. And the old Peace Corps motto was the toughest job you'll ever love. Yeah, it's really hard, and yeah, there's a lot of suck, but there's nothing better.
So what got you into all this? How did you actually get started?
What part of this?
What
Yeah.
started you? Directing, acting? How did you get into this filmmaking?
Basically, the way that I tell my story is, you know, growing up, I went to public school half my life and then private school the other. And that private school was really, really small in St. Louis. And so the small classroom that I had, a lot of the girls wanted to be actors. And that's kind of what I kept hearing the chatter. And it wasn't necessarily me, and I didn't have a lot of crushes like they did and have posts, you know, like, but I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. Maybe I'll just try. So in 6th grade, my parents were very gracious, and they took me to a local agency, and I auditioned. And then I took classes, and then I did, you know, like cold reads and commercials and all, or auditioning for it, but I didn't stick with it. If this was, I could show you my first headshot. It's lovely. It's black and white.
Same.
My hair was, I used to have like ramen noodles for curls before when I hit puberty. Like it looks completely different. So I took a bunch of classes, which I still remember some of them to this day. We took runway and we took acting. We took, you know. And I just didn't stick with it. And that was okay. I wasn't sad about that. My parents didn't pressure me one way or the other. I just tried it. So you fast forward over a decade, and I'm married, and I have my first kid, and he can sit up. I don't think he can talk yet. And I was like, I have a flexible schedule. And they always need babies, right? So let's bring him to the agency. So I went back to the agency I'd been with when I was a teenager, hadn't been there in years. And while I was there, I auditioned as well. I was like, I'm a very different person than what I was as a teenager,
Sure.
as we all are, obviously. And so they accepted us both, and then I just dabbled in it, and it was just a fun hobby. Then I took some more classes, and I was like, okay. Then I started doing, it was more of a job when I was making money, and then it became a career, and then it became a passion. And it was funny because I look back at the girls I grew up with, and one works for like PBS, another one works behind the camera, but like in a certain department. None of them are acting, and here I am, the one who didn't really want anything to do with it decades later in this industry that I love. And so my natural skill set has always been more the producing side. I've produced live events before I was in film and TV, and a lot of those skills are transferable. One's live and one's for camera. And so I don't remember what point it was in my acting career, but I started offering to do more, and then it grew to where it is today. So photojournalism is a whole nother story I can tell you about, but as far as like media industry, that's how that came together.
So your degree's in media communications with a emphasis on public relations.
Well done.
Yeah,
You
thank
did
you
your
so much.
homework. Yes.
So I didn't know that story. I mean, I read it online, but did you want to go into public relations, or for young people out there listening to us now, are those degrees that help support what you wanted to do, or were those conflicting things, or what?
Very good question.
Thank you.
Yes, well done. That, I can definitely see how that played a part in working behind the camera as far as producing. So my love back then was events, and I thought maybe I'd want to do that for a living. And so a lot of the skills I learned you do event planning, you do public relations, marketing. I will say a lot of those things help you understand brand and audience, and you just think a little differently than just the normal creative who doesn't have some of that training. I went into debt for it for many, many years. Finally finished that debt a couple of years ago.
Good for you.
And then my son started, so it all just transitions
We're
over.
we're never out of debt.
Yeah, so I would say it did. I didn't necessarily see myself doing public relations. That's just what the emphasis was in. But I definitely wanted more events. Those skills were transferable that I never, ever dreamed I'd be doing. So what I do now every day is nothing that I trained for specifically growing up. And I've always said, like I've told my son, I was like, you have a mother who has tried many different things, and it took until her 30s, which I'm not in my 30s anymore, but it took until later in life to find what I really loved. But I can look back and see how all of my choices, the good and the bad jobs, they all played a part in who I am today. And I'm grateful for that.
So even though it wasn't necessarily that was the role, it was supporting what you eventually found yourself doing, and you just pulled from all those kind of skills and all that kind of stuff. That's pretty awesome, because I see performer, producer, casting, photojournalist, director, event planner. You mentioned a lot of those things. So, and I think you brought up photojournalism. What a project that was. Talk about that a little bit. That was, even your post today still has those pictures with the little quotes underneath them. So.
That's part of my branding. That's my social media. I schedule it every week. Once a week I show one photo with a quote. That's what I...
Do you do that yourself, the social media? Is that you, or is that a couple?
No, that's me. So I have a special... Yeah, I have my own personal schedule and branding and plan it out ahead of time. I try to. So.
Yeah. So we'll talk about the trip a little bit and how that photojournalism kind of fits into the rest of what you just talked about.
Yeah, so let's see. Photojournalism, all of this can fall under the same basket of storytelling, right? We all tell stories. We all tell it different ways. I just have the honor of doing it on both sides of the camera. Photojournalism I fell into. Again, I've always loved taking pictures, but it wasn't something, again, I dreamed of ever doing for a living, or never even thought or even explored photojournalism. I actually didn't really know about it until I started doing it. So many years ago, I should know what year, but I still don't, after I've been asked this question many times. Many years ago, I was at church, and a woman in the lobby was talking about the nonprofit she started in Uganda. And she was complaining how a local agency had offered to design these thank you cards, and they just weren't following through time and time again. I was like, well, I do graphic design. I'd be happy to do that. So I started creating promotional material for them, but they were giving me these images that were tiny. Like, if you blow them up, they look grainy and they're not professional. I was like, do you have anything with better branding? Any other images? And they're like, no, but why don't you come with us? And I'm very, very transparent when I say all of my work I had done was in Europe. I had been to Romania many a times. I've been to Dominican Republic, which is not Europe, but and Hungary, lived in those countries. And so that was my main experience. And I always had I always stereotyped Africa, which I've been to many, many times now, as bugs and snakes. And it's not. It's not that. There are those in every country.
I've never been there. I still think it might be bugs. I don't know about snakes.
They're definitely bugs. And so I had never felt really called or led to that part of the world until that nonprofit said, well, why don't you come with us? We're bringing a medical team over. We'll give you a couple college interns. You collect stories and you take pictures that you can use in our stuff. And I was like, okay. So I didn't own a camera. I borrowed my parents' camera. And I went over for, it's like at least 2 weeks because it's pretty far away. And that was the catalyst of a love that I never knew existed. So when I was over there, I found this niche that I loved. And I had already obviously been doing nonprofit work. I also worked in the inner city of St. Louis for many, many years downtown. And so I already had a love for people and I had a love for new cultures. And I wasn't afraid to travel, and I was okay being taken out of my comfort zone. And so when I was there, I realized I kind of like taking pictures. And I would come back, or when I came back, people saw some of them and they started asking me to take pictures of their family and, all that stuff. And I did that for a while and I realized I hate it. I don't like post photography. I'm not a studio photographer. Granted, I've done it for friends. I'll still sometimes do it with my friends' senior picture. I'll still do what I can, but I did not like doing it. I did it for a while, and it just wasn't my niche. And I really found I like being where people are and capturing life in the moment. And the more remote, the better. In fact, I told usually my hosts overseas, I'm like, take me to the most remote places. I want to be where the people are. I do not want to be a tourist. So one time we were out in the middle of the desert in the Middle East, and they're like, well, this is remote. And I was like, okay, thank you. So that one trip just planted this seed that just continued to grow. And so after some of those pictures, and people started saying things to me, I'm like, well, maybe I should see if someone else needs pictures. And so I reached out to some other nonprofits, people I told me about or I had heard. And then the first one to reply to that email was a children's home called Robin's Nest. And it sits on top of a mountain and like an hour from Montego Bay. And they're like, we were just praying for someone with your skill set. Can you come in like 6 weeks? And I was like, of course. I went there 16 times in 4 years.
And you just got back last year again, right?
Yeah, but that time I did a video for them, yeah. But I was doing photojournalism, and that's another story I can tell you about that's amazing. But that just started, I started reaching out to other nonprofits when I saw they might need work. So I done Souls for Souls, that's worldwide. I did Endless Opportunities, Bethany Kids, I did like all these nonprofits, and I say photojournalism feeds me in a way that nothing else in this world does. And one of my hosts, we were in the market in Tunisia. That's in Africa, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
They asked me to go to Tunisia, and I said yes, and I hung up, and I was like, I don't know where that is. I had to figure out where that was. He was taking me through the market, and it's very similar in a lot of markets. I'm usually the whitest person there. I'm an American. I'm a female. I stick out like a sore thumb, and then I have a camera. So, you hear the comments and people trying to get your attention and stuff, and it doesn't faze me. One guide or host one time, she's like, I never take anyone to the market. It's intimidating. It can be dangerous, but you're the first person I felt comfortable with. And she left me alone. And so anyways, this other person, we got back from the market and I had taken these pictures, and he said, I just watched you and you just shine when you are interacting with people. And I didn't know their language. And there's just a beauty of connecting with people where people see so many differences, but you still have some similarities. And so my mission, I feel like photojournalism, storytelling in general, but specifically that there's a huge responsibility that my job is to capture this truth, to expose to the world so they can no longer deny it, to show beauty and brokenness, to just break down barriers. And I've seen that happen. And I've been to I think 16 countries now, and it's just, life is beautiful. But we get scared of that. And there are some scary moments. I've taken hostage and kidnapping training. I've signed forms that most American Midwest moms have never signed from their government. Like, if you're kidnapped or taken hostage, this is what we will do. Okay, here's my signature. So yeah, it's not a normal everyday life, but I would not trade it for the world.
you obviously got a supporting family.
Yes, that's a key.
So
That's
talk
key.
a little bit about that, though, when mom's off doing this
Yeah.
or that. How does that kind of fit in? Because you're juggling a lot of, I mean, maybe 3 balls in the air for us, 5. Rocky, you probably got 7 balls. You got about 15 you're juggling, it sounds like, at least. So,
I have 2 boys, and they've grown up with me doing this, so to them it's just normal.
Okay.
Which is what I love. So to them, they know if mom leaves, she's coming back. She's either on a gig, and to them that's not that special. I mean, they're used to it's just mom's job, and I love that because even though it is cool, it doesn't mean I'm any more important than a teacher or a garbage man or whatnot. As far as photojournalism, I actually have pictures around my house, not to showcase my work, but to remind my boys that life is bigger than what they see. And there's this story I often tell of my oldest. A few years ago, he said, "Mom, our house is really creepy." I was like, "Okay, why?" There's so many pictures of strangers on the wall. And I said, "Okay, but why do I do that?" And he knew. It's to remind me that life's bigger than what I see. And it's like, okay, the strangers they're going to be. And I don't even know most of their names. When I'm walking the slums or in villages, I don't have time to meet and remember names and stuff. And sometimes I have a translator and sometimes I don't. Yeah, I mean, you couldn't do what I do without a supportive family and a supportive community. But I love that for my family, it is normal. It's not always easy. My boys are a little older now, so it makes it easier. But when they were young, I had to have, the husband and the parents and friends. But that's also the beauty of community. If we're supporting each other a lot, we can make a big difference. So.
Anybody following in your footsteps?
No, my oldest, will be 20 this week. Next week. Next week. He's a Valentine baby. When he was younger, he had a little interest in photography, but it didn't stick, and that's okay. He's a carpenter now.
Okay.
So not that. But he is going he's going to the Dominican Republic to serve. He's going to go build houses and do some camps and stuff this summer. So
Very
I love
cool.
that. Yeah. I've always I took him to Jamaica with me one time just to expose him a little bit. I really had planned to take him to Haiti. I'd been there many a times. But the president had just been assassinated and the kidnappings kind of went up. So that was off the table even for me for a while. So, no, my parents have always been supportive because my first time overseas was with my dad was on the trip. And then every time after, I was either with a team or alone. They had been overseas each themselves, I think, before when they were younger. But they've always been very supportive. And I would say that if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. I'm also extremely independent, and that plays a big part. So I'm very stubborn. I'm very independent. So a lot of the comments that I've gotten over the years from strangers and from friends are some people say, "Well, how does your husband let you go?" And I was like, "Well, he doesn't let me.
Oh my gosh.
We have conversations." And you go by yourself? And I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "But you go to all these countries?" And I was like, "Yeah." Or, "That's so brave, aren't you scared?" And I was like, there were some guns, but they weren't pointed at me, but I have been doing it for so long. I think it was preparing me to what I've seen and done now, because things don't startle me as much, or I'm a lot more confident because of that.
I saw one of your Facebook posts where you took a picture of somebody that it was the daughter or the mom in the thing.
Oh, you're going to make me cry.
Yeah? See?
Aww.
I do know my stuff.
You do? You're doing really well. This might bring me to tears. I was just telling my friend who took the picture, because I framed it on my wall. It's in my bedroom. Yeah, so there are, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, you may have heard of it, you may not have seen it, but there are communities who actually live within landfills in other countries. So I've been to Guatemala and spent time with them there. And in Jamaica, on the way up to Robin's Nest, there's what we call the dump. You can smell it before you get there. This is where all the trucks and stuff go up. You have to drive through this community where there's just trash everywhere. And then the further you go up, the more trash there is, and and then when you dump it, there actually are people living within the landfill. And so I don't remember what year it was within the 16 trips, but one of the times they're like, "Hey, do you want to come with us to the dump? Don't get out of the truck." Like, there is that fine line as a photojournalist of reading the room. And I can talk about that in a minute as far as gaining trust quickly, because it is very sensitive to take someone's photo, especially when you're not like them. And so you want to be sensitive to the situation, right? Like I'm not going to put you in a magazine and I expose you. It's not that. My goal is to honor you and to, and so anyways, we went to the dump and I took a few pictures from inside secretly. I remember thinking, I don't want to flinch. I don't want to act like this is different. And so the first time I went, I was hooked. Like, I just loved these people. And then I had brought a team over one time, and I said, you guys have to stay. They were in the back of a dump truck, and we bought food, and we put them in bags, and we handed it out to people. And I was the only one that got out of the truck, and I was the one that met people and stuff. But the other thing about photojournalism is, especially in very, very poor countries, but there are even places in the U.S. where this has been a gift. A lot of times their legacy, there's no proof of their legacy visually. They don't have cameras. A lot of people have phones now. It's the craziest thing to see people with phones in the jungle. But they don't have cameras. And if they did, they don't have the money to develop it. And so if I'm able to, I will bring back photos. So I had taken photos. Again, I know I'm very, very independent, but I just go and I just walk and I just meet people and I just walk through the trash and I'm hugging and I'm shaking and I'm talking. And I had this group of photos from 10 years ago. And I thought, I should bring them. I haven't been to the dump. I'd only been there a handful of times. But they just hold a special place in my heart because they're just real. And when you can see beauty beyond the circumstances, it changes you. And so I was asked to produce and direct a film for their 25th anniversary. So I brought over a couple filmmakers from here. Josh Bywater, which I think a couple of you know.
I know Josh.
Okay, we were in a film together and we clicked and we've stayed in contact. So I flew him over. So those three guys and myself, and we spent, I think it was 5 nights, 6 days, something like that over there. And I was like, okay, well, so Kai Condren and Spencer Peck were there. I was like, okay, you two get the drone footage and you get some B-roll. And I asked the director, I was like, I have a really weird request, but would you mind saving your trash until I come? Don't unload it because I really want to go with Eddie-O to the dump. And he's like, yeah, that's great. I was like, okay. So I helped fill the dump truck with the trash from the nest. And I had one spot left, so I had Josh come. And Josh and I raised money. We raised $500, and we packed up my tiny little team. We packed up all the food. We put rice in a bag and beans in a bag, which were they call peas. And we put it in a backpack, so everyone got the backpack. And we stuffed this trash truck with these bags we're sitting on top of and climbing over, and they're on our laps. And we jumped out, and I brought all the pictures. And so we jumped out and we're handing out bags and stuff. And one of the first pictures I had was this young mother, and she's pregnant with a baby and a guy. And then there's a woman in the background, which is the mom. And I'm showing, like, kids, you're like Velcro. We call them Velcro kids. They just come to you and they don't come off, and they're looking and they want. And so I'm looking at all these photos, and this woman walks up to me and I said, hey, do you know that? And she gives me a hug and I don't remember if she actually cried. She was literally almost in tears. And she goes, that's me 10 years ago. That's my baby. She's 10. And that's my mom. Let me show my mom. Mm-hmm. They lived in the same shed that was there 10 years ago. And the guy that's in the picture, his name's the Hulk. He didn't have a shirt on. And he was in a different picture. And the Hulk is still there. He's still bulky. And so Josh and I went back to where they live, and they had us meet their whole family. We took a new family picture, and I said, with the mom and the daughter looks nothing like she did back then. It was this moment of just an investment in people that it just mattered. See, I'm going to tear up. I'm not a crier. I need to cry this weekend, sorry, yes. So I need to think of this.
That's what I was thinking. I had to prepare you
thank
for
you.
this
I
thing
appreciate
in Ohio.
you really prepped.
Yes.
But I was like, hey, Josh, can you take our picture? And when you say that, a lot of times you wait for smiles, and we have a smiling one. But he captured a moment of us interacting and looking at each other and just joy, despite what we were standing around, despite what it smelled like. And then, so that's what the picture that I posted of, and they had their photos, and that was like a gem to them. We take it for granted, but this is their legacy. This is proof that they were alive. And then we went up into the landfill, and I'm just walking all throughout the trash. And the guy they have these huge, I'm not a machinery person. It's a farm machine where they push all the trash with this big old plow, and he stops and calls me over. He wants a bag, and we're just handing him out. And yeah, anyways, that's where that story came from. It was just one of those moments of
Thank you. And I get the pleasure of getting the backstory. So
there's the backstory.
Absolutely.
Sorry,
thank
it was a little
you for sharing. So no, we can move on to more lighter stuff, guys, if you
Well, I do have a question. If someone asks you, what does Jessica Ambuehl do? What is your answer? Because if someone asked me, they would say, oh, I'm a writer-director. That's what I do. What would your answer be?
My answer is typically I have the honor of professionally storytelling on both sides of the camera.
Okay, what's the real answer, Jessica?
And then I say, my passion is acting. If I could do that 24/7, I'd be happy. Photojournalism feeds my soul like nothing else in this world, and I take 1 to 3 trips a year, and that'll never stop. And then everything else I do behind the camera is just a natural gift set, and I just fill in with when I have time and projects that I want to do.
Well, I think it's pretty cool that you do that, because what you said a minute ago, you're not there to exploit anything. You know, you're there for a passion and to let the world know what's going on, which is commendable and awesome. So that's very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Speaking of acting, congratulations on your award over in Berlin.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, tell us about that short a little bit. Or was that a recent project? Like, was that in 23 and it just got over there in 24? Or
No.
it's called Dolly.
Yes.
Dolly,
So it is more of a psychological horror that Peter Carlos from Lindenwood wrote. And he,
I know Peter.
Yeah, so he contacted me and said, I want you to play the lead. Josh was my husband. He flew in from LA to do that. And it is a story about loss. So I won't give this away. But basically, one of our twin daughters dies. I blame myself, and I'm struggling with it. And then you can imagine from there's a doll that comes in that reminds me of her, and so forth. So this short is also a proof of concept for a feature. So he's going to use it to raise money. So he did submit it to a few festivals, and we got that, which is really lovely.
No, that's
it's
kudos.
not out yet. It's been 1.5 years.
Okay.
So, but he said soon it will be at least shown to cast and crew, and then start putting the pitch deck together. And even though it's a short, it sits by itself. He'll show that to investors to hopefully say, yeah, we want to see a whole 90 minutes of it.
So let me ask you this then. What's Stage 27? Is that still the concept with is that kind of in...
That's something different.
Totally different,
Yeah,
okay. So
yeah.
you say these concept things because I see you like post on, hey, trying out a new thing for Stage 27.
Yeah.
I didn't know this was, okay, so Dolly was a filmmaker
Correct.
making a concept
Yeah.
that you just happened to be involved in,
Yep.
did an incredible job, won a nice award, and it could be a feature someday
Yeah.
if it would. Okay.
I hope so.
And then
Yeah.
Stage 27 is...
When people reach out and say, I want to learn this, or I've heard I should talk to you about this, sometimes that turns into longer connections or friendships or relationships. You never know where it's going to lead, right? So I don't ever want to say no to somebody. I always want to respond to everything that's sent to me. And so JT, who's co-owner of Stage 27, last year he just reached out and said, hey, I heard about you from so-and-so. Just want to tell you I have this studio. We're going to be building it out. And I said, great. And he sent me some pictures. I said, okay. So then he reached out, I don't remember if it was in January or the end of December, and said, hey, I have this idea. Actors need good footage for their demo reel, right? And I was like, yeah. Because again, if you have no experience, how are you going to get footage to show you can do it? Of course, in the workshops that I teach, I say, do a good monologue. You know, there's ways around that. But he's like, so do you just want to come? I have one guy come and do something. Can you just come and we'll just do a scene and see how it is? So that was the first one. And so we've just been trying out like all these different spots within the studio, all these different setups.
Was that the nurse one?
So the first one was with Wolfgang.
Okay.
So that was Pale Blue Dot, which was kind of cool.
AI written.
Yes.
That's what I saw. Yeah, tell me about
When I
that.
got the script, I was like, this isn't conversational, but okay. And so he did a fantastic job editing it, because there are a lot of lines that you did not hear and it was great. Like the way it turned out, I really liked it. Then we did Zachary Scott Clark and I did the one in The Detective, and that got a lot of people interested and like, what are you doing? And that one is what he wrote. He wrote an episodic, and that's a scene from that.
Okay.
Then he just wrote something short for Kasia Steele, who had reached out to him and said, I have some interest, and he had a whole medical room. So I just played a nurse. The focus wasn't on me, and it's just a comedy, and it was fun.
funny.
Then we did the LED wall. Zach came back, and it was more of a monologue. I'm in there a little bit, but for Zach, and that was from that same episode. Just to show examples like, can JT do it? What are some ideas? And so actually, I got dings on the way over. I sent him an interest form, a Google interest form that I created that we'll probably be putting out to say, who's interested? Here's the rate. This is what you'll get to see. So
And
nice.
Yeah.
Stage 27 is a local St. Louis.
it is. Yep. It is. It has actually has a CYC wall, an LED wall. It has all these little rooms that are set up. They're gonna have they have an old kitchen almost in, and so I appreciated. He was trying to find needs, and this is definitely a need. We have some other little things that, we have someone that can help you with self-tapes. We have someone that can help you edit, but we don't have this like the big markets do. Like, I know someone that went to LA and paid thousands of dollars to do this. St. Louis can't charge thousands of dollars, but we can charge something.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's a nice service to get something that looks decent and good to show, because agents, especially agents want good stuff.
Is this kind of something where somebody would have to come prepared and know what sets they had, or they would give you something prepared in order to plan it out? How does it work? I mean,
That's a
we
good
might as well
question.
pump in a little
We're
bit.
kind of figuring it out. But essentially, the idea is one setup, one script. 6 people might get the same script. So if someone comes in for an hour, you do the script. There's a reader that we give you, who's not the main focus. The color grading, sound design, editing's all done for you. You get the downloadable link, but you get the script ahead of time. We've also thought about, like, do we incorporate writers? There's been some writers that reached out and like, well, can you shoot some of my stuff? Because I'd like to have samples of mine. So we're trying to figure that out. But right now it's, we're working out those details. But essentially, everything would be done for you. As an actor, you just need to come prepared.
No, that's a great concept with everything with us, I say us because we're filmmakers as well, trying to build the infrastructure of what's going on in Missouri and trying to build that up, especially with the tax credits. I know you're highly involved in that, and that's important to you.
Yes.
And I think you just got off a project that took advantage of the first tax credits. Do you wanna boast on that a little bit if you want to?
I can't take any credit for bringing the tax credit here. There are so many people who did all the work. I just support. But yeah, I've been in some of those conversations and rooms and meetings to say what's next. And so On Fire was the first feature film to get the tax credit. I knew that was coming months before. I knew that they were in the wings waiting. They were just waiting to see if it happened. So yeah, I had been hired by Speak Up Productions, which is led by Dan Paris, to do a short film for a nonprofit called Love the Lou. It's a narrative, so it's not like a talking head video. It's actually a full short story. And we had done a teaser for it years ago, but COVID happened. So they lost all the funding. So we only had, you know that story.
We know that
So we
very
only
well.
had like this much money, so we made a teaser. 3 years later, here we are, and we have the money. And now, so I'm hired to produce. And so Dan's like, what do you think if we try the tax incentive? I was like, okay, I don't know if we have time, because you can't spend the money until you get your approval letter. Or none of what you spend before the approval letter counts as towards your expenses. And so we were kind of the guinea pig, and we worked with Andrea and Grace at the Missouri Film Office, who were incredible. And so we were the first short film to get the tax incentive, and incredibly honored and selfishly proud to be able to say that. And, Callie Hyatt's the new person at the St. Louis Film Office. She's the new hire. She came on set. Andrea and Grace came on set. Like, people were just incredibly supportive of this story and helped us all the way along. So, yeah, I mean, it is extra work, but it's worth it in the end.
I don't know. I have mixed feelings about people's reaction to On Fire. One, I think it's great the tax credit came back. I think it's great that bigger movies are being made here. But I've heard some people say, erroneously, that, no films have been made in St. Louis since the tax credit went away. And as I said immediately to someone on social media, I said, that's completely incorrect. There have been many, many films made here without the benefit of the tax credit. Film in St. Louis never went away. And even if the tax credit goes away again, it'll still be here.
It just brings a larger budget projects here.
It does.
Just attracts
it brings larger budget outside projects, which is good and bad. I think it remains to be seen if we can build an infrastructure like an Atlanta, like a Louisiana, the state of. Can Missouri do that?
I will tell you this. I've been in multiple meetings with the heads of our Missouri state film industry, and we've been talking about that for months. So literally, even last week, we had a 2-hour Zoom call to say, what can we do? What are the spaces we filled? Tomorrow we have a town hall meeting where On Fire crew's coming to say, these are the holes we saw, this is what's needed.
Nice.
The union's part of it, non-union, we're talking. So it is recognized that we don't want to be a failed a failed city
No.
that got it. And so we're working really, really hard. But it also takes time. And so like with continuity, what I'm involved in, we're filling a niche, but there are lots of other needs as well. So do know that it's been talked about for months and we're really trying.
Yeah,
But
'cause
it is a need.
we have a mutual friend that we just saw that was talking about this round table of saying who's at the table, where do we have the niche, where do we have the needs, and where do we need to fill them. But it starts with that conversation, because if you don't have those, and if that doesn't stay together, you're always going to miss the mark. So I thought that was key when he was talking about that.
Yeah, if you can't
Yeah.
diagnose the problem, you can't fix it.
Right.
So those conversations are really
And
good.
I was impressed that it was the legal aspect of it, and this aspect of it,
Yeah.
and this aspect, and the unions were involved saying, hey, we're all pulling for the same thing. We're just trying to fit ourselves in as independent filmmakers, low budget, where do we fit in, and how can we support and still feel as if, because we've always been here,
Right.
as you have, as everybody else has, but we're trying to say is we have to join now to grow with it, to have maybe that voice for the independent actor, the independent filmmakers here in St. Louis, and now's the time. So talk about continuity a little bit, though, because I think that's important. I think you do like workshops, that kind of stuff that I've seen, so I think that's pretty important with, even if there wasn't this film credit, right?
Yeah.
It's because I see you're giving people skills that want to maybe probably dip their toes into the water a little bit.
Yeah. This is year 3, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's been going on for a while. I'm not part of the conception of continuity. It's a nonprofit locally that started in 2014
Okay.
by 2 gentlemen who saw a need for more diversity in our industry. And so back then, before I was attached, I knew about it. They were doing a free, like a 36-week film school for diverse students, and they're all adults. And I don't know if they did it for 2 or 3 years, but then I don't know if you remember, 2019 was the In Motion conference, and so I was hired to help produce that. And so Michael Francis was another one that was hired to help produce that conference, and that conference was so much fun. It was packed. It was such a great vibe. We've tried to do it since, just like, we have talked to venues, and COVID just screwed up so much stuff. Anyways, from that, because that was continuity led, they asked Michael and I to join the board. And so we went through kind of a transition of what does it look like to fulfill our mission, which is to increase diversity in the media industry by, teaching and mentoring and so forth. So we came up with this idea of workshops. Basically, they're 3 in a series. One's on set basics. If you attend that, you get to come to the pre-production one. If you go to that one, you go to the production one. The way the grants are written, you have to do it sequentially. In the beginning, the Missouri Film Office funded it all, which is amazing. They're really supportive of growing our industry. And so we brought in industry professionals from around the area. A couple times we flew in people, but they had St. Louis ties. They worked here before, were born here or whatnot. And they would teach, we usually have about 30 to 40 people. It's a beautiful picture of life that sits there, because it's not all one color, it's not all one age, it's just it's been great. And then it's a full day. Like, it is literally, this next one coming up is 8:30 in the morning to 7 p.m. at night. And we do intense training. We do breaks, and I feed them breakfast and lunch, and we do networking and hors d'oeuvres at the end. And the first one basically is so that, and they come from all walks of life. Some people have had like small production companies, some have no experience at all, some are actors, some are whatever. But they leave that first day, that first workshop, having enough knowledge to walk onto a set as a production assistant. Then the next 2, general session in the morning, and then breakouts in the afternoon, where they're intense breakouts on specific roles. And again, these are local industry professionals that come in and do this. Andrea's there at the end, talking about where to find work and what the Missouri Film Office offers. And then we've done it in Kansas City, and it went beautifully. The vibe there is amazing, like the energy, and people are so excited. PBS will let us know this week, because we held it at PBS. What's the next date that they're available, we can do it again.
Oh,
and
nice.
There's another city in St. Louis, in Missouri, that's asking us to come. So the idea is to grow it. Just depends on what our bandwidth is. We've seen people like within the class, they get together and they collaborate. We've had, because we always do surveys, one person's like, I so wish I would have done this before I made my first film. Now I feel better. Or now that I took this, I thought I wanted to be a director. I don't want to be a director. I want to be a first AD. I'm like, so like, there's just, they're more knowledgeable. They feel empowered. We believe in them. And then if they do all 3, then we have kind of a graduation. And They don't really know that. We give them a certificate, and our first graduating class was last year, and I felt like a mom. Like, I was almost in tears because they were so excited. This is a paper certificate, but they felt like they had accomplished so much. The really cool thing, 2 things from that. Anyone who attends a Set Basics workshop is part of what we piloted last year, an apprenticeship program. So an independent film, like any of yours, a production company can come to us and say, hey, I've got a production on this date or dates. I would like a PA, and I'm okay if they're green. And then their pay is subsidized, right? Well, the Missouri Film Office pays for it right now. The goal is for production companies to help invest in this.
Sure.
But right now, so like I used one PA on mine, and they paid for it. And he learned a lot. Because it's one thing to learn all this, but it's another thing to be on set. So like Unbridled and Rival and all these, it's been great to be able to put people who are attending our workshops that care about growing, and then put them on a professional set.
We were on a commercial shoot together with a couple of your PAs,
Oh,
right?
oh, that's
JJ
right.
and yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about
They
Monica.
were so excited. It
I
was
know.
so fun to see.
It's like first
Yes.
day of school.
Yes, I still follow both of them on Facebook, and
Yeah,
we
it's
talk about it
great.
on our podcast about how quick that film community, theater communities build that family aspect of it, and that's
No
exactly what
doubt.
it sounds like, kind of what you
Yeah.
at least get out of that, and hopefully some people kind of continue on. That's the purpose behind it, and you give them a new kind of hope or life or
Yeah.
some other direction that they didn't know they had in them.
It's fun to see where they end up. Like 3 of our PAs were on fire. One was a key PA the entire shoot. Another one was a costumer in the wardrobe department, and another one was just a PA.
Just a PA.
Well, I mean, like, they didn't have, like, key PA. It wasn't like, sorry.
He's good.
It's good.
Sometimes no responsibility. You just gotta just.
It's a very important role.
It is very
And then the added thing, and I'll be done with this, is that with the new tax incentive, if you are approved for it, you have to use one PA, if you remember this from the SLIF panel.
Yep.
That's gone through a state accredited program. We didn't mean to be the only one, we're just the only one right now. So the nice thing is, the advantage is if projects come, no matter where they're on the state, we can offer it to people who attended it in Kansas City. So like we even had a film reach out to us and say, we're doing it in Kansas City, who are your PAs?
Yeah, because they want that extra
Fantastic.
2-3% that they can add up to their
Yeah.
maximum
But
or
then our
whatever
people
that's
get experience. It's fantastic. So
on a movie set, which
Yeah.
is what's key.
Yeah.
Get that experience.
So you start out by bringing back the curtain and letting them know what each job really is and how to do it.
Set Basics is production overview of all the departments. And then we go into specifics on PA work, set etiquette, safety, dress code, do's and don'ts, tips and tricks. We talk about networking. We talk about where to find work. So it's like when I book speakers, I always say, listen, this is very broad. It's to make sure we're all start at the same level. And then the next 2 workshops are intense. Like we bring in Curtis McCarty, brought his grip truck, and he unloaded it and
Wow.
showed them what to do. And we had a production designer, and they went through, setups. And so, yeah, the other 2 are a little bit more intense.
I'll tell you one piece of set etiquette.
Yes.
When you're on set, don't bring your business card and start handing that out. We years and years ago,
I know someone who does that.
we were taping auditions for our first feature film, Amphetamine, and the camera guy is passing out his card to every actor who's coming up to the audition, and so eventually we had to say, buddy, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just trying to. No, you're trying to get actors for whatever you're doing later on, but you're actually shooting the audition for this film that we're going to be making. So please don't do that.
I only did 3 jobs with that guy.
I hope they paid at least.
Exactly.
Did you take his card?
Oh, wait.
I got taken advantage of
Oh,
again.
damn.
You got taken advantage of 3 times only.
Well,
Things I do for a resume builder.
can't win them all. But here's something that's kind of happened recently in the St. Louis film scene. I know you've heard about this. There's been a big shakeup at Cinema St. Louis. Mm-hmm. And how do you think that is going to play out? Because Cinema St. Louis is basically the local organization that runs the festivals. Mm-hmm. And I know another filmmaker he's doing his own festival, and there's a lot more festivals popping up, which I think is great. And I was a big fan of Cinema St. Louis. I can't say I'm not a fan now, but I think more people putting on festivals, more diverse festivals, is a awesome thing. But what do you think about the whole shake-up and fallout and all that?
I'm going to start by saying there is more than 2 sides or 3
Name
sides to
some
every
names, come on.
story.
There are.
Yes. So I don't feel like I have much of a voice. Anytime there is change, it's hard. And anytime people are hurt, that's hard. And it's very hard to go through change without people getting upset.
True.
So, I've worked with many of us have the key people there. So I don't know all the stories. So I hope the best for them. I think that Cinema St. Louis as a whole, no matter who's leading it, offers a lot of value. I hope it doesn't affect the local community. If it spurs on more growth, fantastic. I'm all for growth. I'm all for more festivals. That's great. But I won't. I wouldn't chime in on individual people.
Oh no, I'm not talking about individual people.
Yeah,
But I mean,
hope. I did talk to one person said something recently like, I don't know if I'm going to submit to. I was like, if you knew the ins and outs of every festival, then you may not feel that way about all of them. Just because it's in your hometown doesn't mean you can't be supportive still. So I think at the end of the day, whether we think it's a good choice or bad choice, it's still important, and I will still be supporting.
But do you think there's going to be any? Do you think there's going to be any sort of, I don't know,
Taking sides?
not taking sides exactly, but things splintering into factions?
I don't know. I think it already started doing that, not necessarily because of ill will or anything.
Yeah.
But I think that's a sign of growth. So I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, again, for the people involved, I don't wish anyone to lose their job. I don't wish anyone to be. You all right? You gonna make it?
It's okay.
I'm gonna make it.
We can take a moment.
Stories are-
I'm so sorry.
Cough buttons next time.
Give Chris Clark your condolences. I'll be cutting this out. Anyway,
All right, I think I'm good.
for the people involved, obviously, I don't want to see anyone lose their job. I don't want to see anyone upset or unhappy. But, and again, I don't know if I don't know the new leadership very well, so I'm not sure what their view on independent film is at all, if they're film people or not. But I do think that change can lead to growth, and growth is a good thing.
Yeah, I think it spurs something else that comes out of it. It always does. And the proof's in the pudding, whether the festival is what people want it to be. So, we were even talking about possibly sticking something in there, right?
Maybe.
Possibly.
Why not?
A little teaser for everybody.
So speaking of films and feature films, what about Shakespeare's Mummy? What can you tell us about that?
I'm waiting for it to be released, so I don't know. I have no idea when that's going to happen. It was fun to do. It was a lot of fun. Again, because it was a very, very different character. You don't get to play the goddess Isis and call people out of hell very often.
That's very true.
And you don't get to wear what I wore. It wasn't very comfortable, but it was fun to do. It was really fun to do. But yeah, I don't know when it's.
I know when it is.
Isn't it? I saw it was in a festival that we're in.
It is.
It
The
is.
always late movies and TV awards.
Oh, okay. I meant like.
Oh, an actual
streaming.
release.
Yeah, an
Oh,
actual release.
okay,
I'm sorry.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's out there, but it's not out there.
It's in festivals.
It's being
Yes.
festivals, that kind of stuff. It
I
had
don't
a
know how many
premiere, I saw
festivals.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, festivals are not films in release. You can go to tons of festivals and still not end up with any kind of deal.
Right,
so.
and that's what you meant from
Yeah.
that kind of side point.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about a lot here, Jessica. I don't know what time it is, but I don't know if we have to wrap or if we got 2 hours.
I don't know. We got anything else?
I got tons of stuff.
All right, throw some more out there.
I was just gonna do fun fact with Jessica.
You're the MC, man. Have at it.
No, I'm not the MC.
Tonight you are.
No.
Yeah.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, he brings all the good stuff. We just kind of chime in every now and
Just in
again.
case it dies, I have to be ready for something.
That's good pre-pro.
That's
Good
right.
job.
I try. No, I think we've covered a lot. Is there anything else you want to kind of add to this? Is there anything you're promoting you want to say? Just kind of leave us with some thoughts. If not,
Well, I'm curious what's going on next, to be honest. What do you
Yeah,
got going
that's
on
great.
next?
Yeah.
Because I see quite often in social media, you're posting just wrapped up a commercial here, just wrapped up a commercial, or your photojournalism stuff. And you seem like you're always on the road.
It depends on the week. The next 2 weeks I'm on the road a lot.
I do have a question.
Yes.
So, obviously, you're very accomplished and you are working all the time. Why do you stay in this area?
Multiple reasons. One, the personal side, my kids, I wouldn't uproot them for that. One's a grown man and the other one's in high school now. So, that was a personal choice. And I always feel like I can go wherever the work is. I can leave for a week. I can leave for 3 months. I can leave for 30 minutes. My family's supportive. So I realize the limitations that puts on me as an actor. when I'm not in a larger market. I do think, even though COVID was awful, it did bring some benefit to actors as far as the ability to self-tape and be viable anywhere. And also, on the con, I have so much more competition now because anyone can tape from anywhere. So I also am a cheerleader for our city here. I believe we have talent. I want, my intent is not to leave. If I get opportunities, I will go where the opportunities go.
Sure.
Do I want representation in other markets? Yes, I wanted to keep adding to it. I have them in like 6 different states or 8 different states. So I want the opportunities. So that's why I keep doing it. So I'll just travel wherever it is. It is a nice home base also for international travel because I'm kind of in the middle of the States. I like our mentality here. It is different. But I don't know what the future holds. We'll see. Like when the youngest is out of high school, there's been talk of me moving to a bigger market. But my film and TV agent, she said it last year and she said it last week to me. She's like, Jessica, you don't need to move. I'm submitting you everywhere across the world. So like I just submitted for a TV show in Atlanta and did one of the best classes I've ever taken, a 4-hour intense class with a huge studio there. So if I can be submitted anywhere and it doesn't matter. There are those opportunities that you just aren't going to get.
True.
And I understand that. And I want to keep growing and get bigger opportunities. So we'll see. I appreciate the guest star and co-star opportunities. But yeah, I mean, I believe in our city. I like the Midwest. At first it was personal, but let's see what the future holds.
Well, good. Because I meet so many people, filmmakers, actors, that dump on St. Louis. They just say what a terrible city this is and nothing ever happens here and blah, 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 blah. And I get really tired of that.
Well, make something happen,
Well, that's
my
exactly
mentality.
it.
Like what
I mean,
you're doing. Yeah.
wherever you are, that's where something can happen. And I know so many people. I know a lot of people who've gone to L.A., went out there, they got in a line behind 10,000 other people, and then they came back here because, And I've said, you can be a big fish in a small pond, or you can be a small fish in a big pond, or whatever. But I think the way the world is set up now is, with few exceptions, you can pretty much do whatever you want to do in entertainment and still live wherever you want to live. And I'm a big champion of the city of St. Louis. I really am. And the state of Missouri.
Yeah, I've met with 3 filmmakers last month for different reasons. I wanted resources or advice or guidance or whatever. And all 3 of them, I had to kind of change their perspective on actors here. They're like, well, we're going to go to LA. And I was like, well, don't forget, there is talent here.
A lot of talent here.
LA doesn't make you a better actor, does it? I mean,
no, but even, I will tell you, the casting director in Atlanta is working in tangent with the casting office in LA for this big ABC show. So even some of their big roles are even going to LA, and they know that.
Well, sure. I mean, that's where Hollywood is. Of course, that's what their natural inclination is.
Well, and to their benefit, they feel like in larger markets there are career actors because they can make a living doing off of it. We can't make a living here in St. Louis doing it. That's why I have lots of agents. So I can do more opportunities. So in their mind, it's like, well, if you don't do it for a living, then you're not as talented. And I was like, oh, okay, let me just take a step back. Don't forget us here. So it is a mindset, and it does get old, but I'm very stubborn. So we're just going to keep pushing, and we're going to keep saying, we're here. What movie is that? Horton Hears a Who? Do you remember?
I have kids.
The elephant and the little the Who's. Yeah, he's on the dandelion. They're like yelling, like, we're here. That's what I feel like we're doing in St. Louis. And
we're trying.
Well, it's things like this, what you're doing, getting it out there, talking about continuity and this and the tax credit, right? It takes a larger voice than one voice, right? All of us collectively screaming the same thing helps that tremendously. And I thought you did something on, you said you've done it for a couple of years when we were talking before we got on here, but the way you posted your year in review, if we want to call it that, but not the fact to boast, because you're very well written, right? You're very modest, but you're well written the way you posted. Is let's highlight, and I wrote it down here, like let's highlight like what you didn't get. Right? That's kind of like the reality of it is so you just threw it out there. I don't know how many years you've been doing that. I thought it was impactful, at least from reading it, going, well, here it is. She doesn't get everything. Yeah, she could be able to face, people. Here's the perception and here's the reality, right? So how long you been doing that? And
I don't know it's been several years at least. I started doing that because I seem to be constantly sent. I meet with a lot of people who want to act or they're in acting and they want to grow. And so I have someone, I have a call with someone scheduled with someone in LA that wants to know how St. Louis is doing. I have that call on Thursday. I met with someone for lunch last week. So I'm constantly meeting with people. And I feel like it's important to use your knowledge and experience to invest in others. And so because I had been meeting with so many people for years, I was like, I need to give them multiple reasons. One was I need to give them a real glimpse of what it takes to make a living or to get gigs. Because if you are not in this industry, you only see the sexy side of it. It is cool to see your face on a magazine or on screen. Yeah, it's really cool. But you don't know how much work that took to get to that point. And if you do it for a passion, it's not for the notoriety, it's not for the exposure, it's because you love what you're doing. And so I was doing it for that. Also, I teach a business of acting workshop. And I also do mentoring for an acting school in LA. Their students reach a certain point in their curriculum, and then they do a 1-hour session with me. And I go over the business side of things. And so I have a database of every single thing I submit for, whether it's headshot, self-tape, digitals. I keep track of all of the details, like when's the audition due, what's the usage, how much is the pay, I write out everything so that I can give them a view of like, listen, this is if you like what I'm doing, let me tell you how many I actually didn't get. Not to put a negative spin on it, but to put a reality spin on it. Because it also helps me go, celebrate. You kicked butt, you worked, it felt like good. But sometimes you can also dwell on what you didn't get because those numbers are substantially higher. And so I do it for that. And then also because I cast, and I don't do it for a living, I do a handful of projects a year. I have clients often say, well, how much should we pay actors and how much? And I'm like, I can go back and go, well, the voiceover, and as non-union, it's all over the board, granted. So I always give a whole talk about it, but I at least have a database to go, okay, well, here's some examples if they ever needed it. So it provides a variety of options, but I've had people over the years, like you said, reach out to me and go, thank you so much for writing that. It just opened my eyes to what it might take to even get some jobs. I think the number was like 292 auditions, because I just looked it up before we got on. 292 auditions, that's through 6 agents, and submitting myself for things, because I do that all the time as well. And then I booked 24 maybe, or 26, so not even 10%, a little under 10%. And 22 different ones, I got callbacks or was the runner-up. And 3 gigs I had to turn down. I mean, that's a buttload of work.
You started this whole thing by saying you got to get the no's to get the yeses.
Yes.
Right? Did you get enough no's? In business, we talk about that all the time. Did you ask enough? Did you submit enough? Did you do enough? Did you put yourself out there enough to get the no's in order to get the yeses? And if you're saying 10%, and that might be really good in the industry. I don't know what the industry average is.
That's pretty good.
Okay, yeah, exactly. But based on
Yeah.
based on if you're doing 1,000 or 10.
Sure.
I just thought that was interesting. So thanks for sharing that. So
Well, it's another important concept that a lot of people ought to get behind is you have to acknowledge and accept and admit the level of rejection and the level of, let's just say, suck that comes with this. And I think that people who try to hide that, they really come off as false. Because there's a lot of no's and there's a lot of negativity, and that's just part and parcel. It's like we have a lot of stuff out there. We've made a lot of feature films. We have a lot of stuff available here, there, and everywhere, and we've been rejected to many, many film festivals. And I always tell people, read the comments, but don't reply to them. And don't take any of it personally. Or if you do reply to anything, always reply with my standard reply, which is thank you for your support. Whatever they said, good, bad, doesn't matter. Thank you for your support. You just have to acknowledge that.
In our creative field, there's always going to be people who like it and people who don't.
Yes.
So when you put your stuff out there, you are being very vulnerable no matter what role you're in. As actors, we are, I don't want to say extra vulnerable, but I mean like every part of our body is criticized, our voice, our performance. At least behind the camera, I feel like I can hide a little bit more, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's still your work, still your baby, still your investment that people have opinions on. So it is you have to have some thick skin to keep pushing along.
Every week somebody asks me, hey, you making it to Hollywood yet? I'm like,
Thanks for the reminder.
Well,
My number
that's-
hasn't changed.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know somebody?
Well, that's not really my goal to live out in Hollywood and be a big star anymore. Maybe when I was 20 or in my late teens, that's what you thought you wanted to do. But it's so different now. It's not even, you can't control anything. It's just a different business. The indie world that we live in right now, it's kind of where I want to be for a while. You can control more.
It's definitely fun. Speaking of being vulnerable, to wrap up here,
Yes.
I saw some fun facts on your JessicaAmbuehl.com for anybody that wants to go out and
That's a
find
pretty damn
Jessica.
good website, too, by the way. You did a good job with that.
So you put some fun facts out there.
Yes.
Right? So you still laugh in your sleep.
I've been told that apparently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know if I still do it.
does anybody tape you?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I
What
don't
kind
know.
of freak are you?
This
That's
got,
not freak. This is on her thing.
this got really weird
This is
really
on her thing.
fast.
Well, wait till you get this one. Your tongue is long enough to touch the middle of your nose. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. That's a good one.
Yeah.
And you graduated early from high school. One year
did,
early. What high
yeah.
school did you go to? Because that's a St. Louis thing.
Oh, yeah, but it was a tiny private school. So I went to Victory Christian School. And back then, a friend of mine was a year older, and she was able to graduate a year early. And most of my friends growing up have always been older than me. And so I was just anxious to get to college. That it sounds weird. I loved education. So I was ready. So I did 4 years and 3. So I did some online courses in the summer and used my study halls and stuff to do other stuff. It was the right fit for me. They didn't let anyone do it after me, so I ruined it apparently.
Okay.
But it was a good fit for me.
And finally, do any of your girlfriends like to go to action movies anymore? So you said that when you were growing up, you were the one going to Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I'm pulling out some stuff that
No, that's great. I love it. No, I'm trying to think of who would.
still going. Which
I
husband
would.
or about?
Well, yeah, I mean the guys would, but as far as like women, I don't know many of them that love. Like I love Die Hard, and I loved Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan, and I was the only female in the audience, and that's okay. I was okay with that.
That's all I got, gentlemen. Sorry.
Oh, well, I dropped out of high school, so I don't have an answer for any of that.
You
But
finished early too.
I did finish early.
Yeah, we have that in common.
We
Look
do.
at that. That's positive spin on
I know.
that.
You know what else is positive?
That we're all sitting in the basement together.
There's that. And when we talk about the highs, the lows, and the in-betweens of true independent filmmaking on the Indie Film Sucks podcast, brought to you by 88mm Productions.
Tell a friend.
Tell a friend.
That's right.
It's out on whatever places these things are at.
Jackie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
you for
Jessica.
being
Absolutely.
you for opening up.
What do you got, Brock?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think Chris covered everything.
Oh, sorry.
Good night.
Indie film sucks. Indie film sucks. It's the Indie Film Sucks podcast. Yeah.